Hello everybody and welcome back to the Fortress of Solitude. Today we're going to be talking about Aquaman issue 2 by Jeremy Adams, John Timms and Rex Lucas. Aquaman's journey to rescue the now missing Atlantis takes a turn as Arthur disappears through the Omega portal in the bottom of the ocean and is spat out on a faraway desert planet. Adams is really taking the old saying fish out of water here quite literally, as we've removed Arthur from the ocean entirely and dropped him into a desert, but like a long abandoned dried up ocean floor type desert. It's really cool looking scenery. Arthur isn't given enough time to investigate the giant Omega Gate as he is beset by aliens riding giant lizards. The creatures announce themselves as the Grindelow and they will take the hero to their leader. The Grindelow being a new bad guy for Aquaman to deal with is really quite cool. It's from English folklore and I imagine a lot of people will recognize them as well from Harry Potter. And that's something really Arthur hasn't had to deal with, this sort of area of the folklore. Usually it's stuff, taken from Greek, Roman myth, the Kraken, giant octopuses, stuff like that. So Aquaman finally branching out into other cultures' folklore has some real legs to it. I'd like to see what else we get to see him deal with across this planet. Arthur won't go quietly and decides to use his new power over water to control the mud in the area and throw it at the Grindelows, blinding them and their creatures. He quickly overpowers them and decides he wants to go and see their queen for himself, tying them all up and riding one of their lizard creatures to go and see their queen. Adam's knack for writing action sequences really shines through here as we get some great fittingly wacky action here as Arthur swings lizards around by its tongues and uses it like a flail to keep the others at bay, all while making snappy quips. It feels like Aquaman should feel like. Arthur and his captured Grindelows soon arrive at a castle made from discarded flotsam and jetsam. An interesting piece of info is also revealed here as Arthur sees that the area used to be underwater, or at least until recently, almost as if something had kind of sucked up all of the water for itself and dried out everything in the surrounding area. Needing more answers, Aquaman presses into the castle and meets the Grindelow's queen, the water hag known as Jenny Greenteeth. Again, this is more ties to English folklore, as Jenny in English folklore is kind of seen as sort of like a Grindelow, kind of like their queen. She's tied in with that sort of area of folklore. Jenny reveals that their world has dried up because the blue has stopped flowing. The blue is what controls and connects water, much like the green does with nature, and thus it's also connected to the green and the red as well. With the blue stopped, Jenny and the Grindelows are forced to harvest water from wherever they can get it, like Aquaman's blood. Arthur is suddenly trapped within Jenny's vines and told that he will soon join his people in the land of the dead. Arthur is soon taken down into a pit where the vines begin to rip at his skin, causing him to bleed into a giant skull-adorned vat below him. Arthur isn't alone as he is slowly drained of his blood, finding an older, bearded man also hanging nearby being drained. The man reveals that he's been there a very long time, constantly bled, allowed to recover and heal, and then bled again. He reveals that he knows Arthur's powers and says that with the ability to move water, he can now also control blood, and they can get free thanks to it. The man also states that he has powers too, however he can't use them since he's too weak, hence why he hasn't been able to escape until now. Using the water bending powers he got from Mera, Arthur is able to focus his mind and gain control over his and the blood in the vat, freeing him and the shadowy man from the deadly vines. Things take an interesting turn here as the man is revealed to be Arion, former king of Atlantis, someone Arthur should recognize. Now right from his first appearance here, I did get kind of villain vibes, or at least antagonist vibes, with him being revealed as Arion as well. It's pretty obvious that he's going to be a villain since Arion is usually depicted as a villain throughout the comics he's appeared in. I do get the feeling that he's using Arthur to get free so he can, probably turn on him somewhere later down the line, or get something that he isn't supposed to get. The mention of powers also feels intentional as well, as these two will probably come to blows at some point, and that's kind of setting up the fact that they have similar powers and will end up, maybe Aquaman learns something from him that he then uses to defeat him at some point. Arion wishes to escape the castle, but Arthur refuses, not until Jenny is dead and the lands are freed from her rule. Arthur wastes no time and uses the new bloodbending abilities to surf a giant wave of blood into Jenny's throne room to confront her. Aquaman has always been quite a vicious warrior, and he hasn't been afraid to kill in the past, but there is really something different about this time round. Like, there is an anger and rage behind his words, which probably intentional, like with the whole blood bending ability, kind of controlling blood. Kind of reminds me of stuff you'd see with certain Red Lanterns. And red is often associated with rage and violence, especially in the DC universe. So maybe there is something affecting him on this world that he doesn't even realize, and like controlling the blood like fuels his anger or something. As he viciously attacks Jenny, Arion realizes that Arthur is fulfilling the Dark Tide prophecy, which states that a king from another world will come and be made into a god. Arthur's attack on Jenny ends up ripping the parasite that is Jenny from its host's body, freeing the poor woman that Jenny had taken over and giving Aquaman a chance to rip the symbiote apart and defeat the villain once and for all. With its dying breath, Jenny reveals that Aquaman will not survive since Dagon lives. So not only is Adams mixing different folklores of Earth, because obviously Dagon is also some folklore stuff in Earth as well, but also like he is a legitimate Aquaman villain, a very old Aquaman villain. And I like that he's bringing him back, because we haven't, I don't think, seen Dagon in quite a while. I know he was briefly mentioned in an Ocean Master one-shot back during the Year of the Villain event. Very briefly mentioned about like what his deal with like an amulet to try and take over the underwater kingdoms and stuff like that. So I'm wondering like what he's going to be in this iteration, whether we'll see him as like the monster man he usually was back when Garner Fox created him, or whether he'll be something completely different on this new world. The possibilities are endless. In the wake of the battle with Jenny, Arion and the woman who was once Jenny bow to Aquaman, telling him that he has fulfilled their Dark Tide prophecy and will be made into a new god. Now this is interesting since it's got a couple of meanings and ways it can go. Like it could literally mean new god as in he's just a new god of this world's pantheon, which I think is what Arion means. But what if he actually means like Aquaman could possibly become a new god? I only mention that one because when new god is said by Arion, it's in capitals. New and god are capitalized. Which is usually how you refer to the new gods in DC Universe. So could this be tied in with what's happening over in the New Gods book? Is there some sort of new change going on here? Because obviously this is all connected to Darkseid, and Darkseid is effectively quote unquote dead right now. He's over he's just made the Absolute Universe, and is this tied to that as well? Because we're starting to see things from the Absolute Universe creep in to these books. Could Aquaman be in the Absolute Universe or just on an alien world? Who knows? And I'm intrigued to see what Jeremy Adams is going to do with this, because he's connecting all this stuff from Aquaman's past with all this new stuff, with these new god stuff. It's all really interesting, really quite different from what we usually get with an Aquaman ongoing. Aquaman issue 2 went headlong into its overarching plot, thrusting Aquaman into dealing with enemies from various folklores from around the world, tying it all together with some great connections to the green, the red, and the blue, the Absolute Universe, and the New Gods. I love how Adams is applying Arthur's new water-bending powers, and not just confining it to water either. He's having fun with it, having Arthur take control of things like mud, and ultimately blood, which is a hell of a cool looking visual. I love all of the hints also dropped to the larger Dark Tide New God story, and I can't wait to see what Adams does with it. I'm going to give this issue an 8.5 out of 10.